I'm Cornel Ban. I'm a professor in the IR department here. And on behalf of the Center for the Study of Europe and the Center for Law, Finance and Policy at our university, I would like to introduce a talk series. It's part of the EU Inside Out, which is a series that these two centers have put together. A conversation today with Zygimantas Pavilionis, Ambassador of the Republic of Lithuania to the United States, and Olexander Motsyk, Ambassador of Ukraine to the same country. The event takes place as part of a series of conversations with European ambassadors. Europe is hot again, as you see from the news, funded in part by a grant from the European Commission delegation in Washington to the Center for the Study of Europe. We'd like to thank the Commission for their support of this important initiative, as well as to the Center for Law, Finance and Policy and the Europeans in Boston for their generous co-sponsorship. Ambassador Pavilionis became ambassador to Lithuania to the United States in August 2010. He joined the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of his country in 1993. Where he was instrumental in achieving no less than Lithuania's accession to NATO and the European Union. Between 1993 and 2009, he held various high-level positions in the Lithuanian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, most focused on Lithuania's relationship with the European Union. Most recently, Ambassador Pavilionis acted as Ambassador at Large and Chief Coordinator for Lithuania's presidency of the Community of Democracies and Chief Coordinator for Transatlantic Relations. Ambassador Motsyk was appointed as Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of Ukraine to the United States in June 2010. He's also currently serving the same role to Antigua and Barbuda, the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, and is the permanent observer of Ukraine to the Organization of American States. Previously to his position, he served as ambassador to Poland, Turkey, and held numerous other high-level diplomatic, ministerial, and secretarial positions. In these roles, he has, among other things, represented Ukraine before the International Court of Justice in The Hague, and led negotiations with the Russian Federation and other countries on a wide variety of issues. Ambassador Motsyk is author of numerous essays and articles in the field of international law and international relations. The ambassadors will address broadly the theme of democratic politics under conditions of globalization from both EU member states and non-member states. The conversation will be moderated by Ellen Berger, a retired writer on international affairs from Boston Globe. Ellen graduated from Harvard in history and literature, has an MA in comparative literature from Cornell, taught at MIT in the humanities department, and served as the Boston Globe's editorial writer in international affairs until 2011, when he retired. I hope we'll have an exciting hour and a half, if I'm not mistaken. And welcome, and thank you for coming, making it all the way to Boston, despite the inclement weather. One item of housekeeping: if you could turn your cells off, because we have cameras going and so on, would be lovely. Okay, thank you so much.
So the ambassadors will each make a short statement that you prepared, and then we'll have a question and answer period. I'll begin by asking a few questions, and then we'll throw it open to you in the audience. And we have microphones at either side, so when we're ready for the audience questions, the mics will be brought to you, so wait until the mic is brought to you to answer the question. Who would like to begin? Do you want to start?
Thank you. Thank you very much. First of all, thank you for inviting us, me and my good friend and colleague, Ambassador of Lithuania, to Boston University. We just a couple of minutes ago had a great tour. Your university is really fantastic, and it's a pity that I'm not 18 or 20 years old in order to become a student of your university. So once more, thank you very much. In my short remarks, I would like to inform you briefly about my country, about Ukraine, about where we are between the East and West, and how do we live and what we think about our future. Ukraine, as we say, is a young state. We are just 21, but old nation. We are successor of Kiev Rus, the most powerful medieval state, existed from 9th till 13th century, which was at that time integral part of the Kiev of Christian Europe. Later on, we lost our independence, and it took centuries to regain independence again. And as I mentioned, we are already 21 years old now. These 21 years were years of successes and losses, ups and downs, but at the end of the day, we can say that we are Ukraine, we are an independent country. We look forward with optimism in our future. For the time being, Ukraine is striving to become a member of the European Union. You might know that some time ago, Ukraine made a very important step. We completed the text of the agreement on association and free trade zone with the European Union. Last year, at the end of the March, we initialed the text, and now we have been working together with the European Union in order to sign the agreement by all 27 members of the European Union and by Ukraine during summit in Vilnius this November. We hope that this signing will take place. The next, we hope that there will be ratification and Ukraine will become one step closer to the European Union. In the internal policy, this government, which took office 3 years ago, has been working on systemic reforms in order to transform Ukraine into a prosperous, democratic European state. For these 3 years, this government managed to adopt, for the first time in the history of modern Ukraine, a number of very important legislations like budget code, tax code, customs code, criminal and procedural code, and many others, which actually the aim of which is to bring European and in general Western standards to Ukraine. The integration to European Union is the number one priority of Ukraine, and it is number one priority in our foreign and internal policy. We also, the other priorities of Ukrainian foreign policy is strategic partnership with the United States of America and development, also strategic partnership and good neighborly relations with Russia. With the United States, we have we really enjoy good relations. United States was among the first countries that recognized Ukraine. All this year, the United States has been supporting our independence, sovereignty, territorial integrity, and inviolability of frontiers. We highly appreciate that. On the other hand, Ukraine is a quite reliable partner of the United States in such areas as nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation. You might know that at the beginning of the 90s, Ukraine gave up the third biggest nuclear arsenal in the world, at that time bigger than of France, Great Britain, and China combined. Well, last year we removed all highly enriched uranium from the territory of Ukraine. It was a result of an agreement which was reached 3 years ago between President Obama and President Yanukovych in Washington in April 2010, if to be exact. Ukraine is also Ukraine also takes part in practically all peacekeeping operations. Not being member of NATO and European Union, we participate in all operations under the umbrella of NATO, European Union, and United Nations. For the time being, Ukrainians are on duty in 11 countries, including in Afghanistan, Kosovo, Cote d'Ivoire, and some other countries. We also are a reliable partner of the United States of America if we say about fighting against international terrorism, piracy, cyber terrorism, organized crimes, trafficking in people, illicit trafficking in drugs, etc. So our cooperation in the area of security and in other areas are the road or the way or the road with two ways. For us, the United States of America is also a very important economic partner. You might know again that last year two giant American companies, ExxonMobil and Chevron, came to Ukraine in order to export shale gas and oil and gas on the continental shelf in the Black Sea. So we are important partner of United States in the field of energy. You also might know that Ukraine has always been a breadbasket of Europe. Ukraine possesses 1/3 of black fertile soil of the world, and for today we can produce twice as much as we can consume agricultural products. So our agriculture is oriented to a great extent to the export. And just a few pieces of information. We are number 3 in grain export, number 1 in barley production and export, number 1 in sunflower oil and seed production and export, number 4 in potato production, and so on and so forth. So we are one of the really important players on the world market of food. The next Ukrainian priority is development of friendly relations with Russian Federation. Russia is our big neighbor. We have quite a lot in common as far as our history is concerned, culture, language, traditions, and ties among people. Russia is also a big market for Ukraine. 1/3 of our foreign trade is with Russia, the other 1/3 with the European Union, and the rest 1/3 is with all other countries of the world. So we are quite interested in development friendly relations with Russia, but as we usually say, on the basis of equality and mutual interest. And we understand that having good relations with Russia, it will be, I would say, easier for us to move ahead, to make progress in our relations with European Union. So these are main priorities of foreign policy of Ukraine, and maybe at this point I would like to complete my remarks. Thank you very much, and I will be glad to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, this is a pleasure to be back in Boston. Last summer, I was dancing with my 4 kids here somewhere with 7,000 Lithuanians. We had some kind of folk dance festival of Lithuanians all over the globe, keeping our traditions and trying to retain our values. Well, and with my good friend Sasha, as we call him in Washington, we are kind of old-time friends. Well, 1,000 years of our nations are living in the same area, and yeah, we had great time. Even you mentioned, well, in the 13th century you lost your statehood, but actually we've been living together quite happily, I would say. And well, for 500 years, Lithuania has its own statehood that some people, like John Paul II, was calling European Union of the Middle Ages. In America, I call it America of the Middle Ages. Why I'm calling it? Because by the end of 18th century, this country was dissolved because we became too much American. We copied the Constitution America adopted after some movements in the streets of Boston, and we infused it with a lot of human dignity and liberty elements, and 3 empires then killed us. That was the beginning of our great immigration to America, where I have now maybe 1/4 of my nation, 1 million and 3 million back. Well, I'm telling it for the reason, and I will still continue. Afterwards, we've been facing 2 totalitarian regimes together with our brothers Ukrainians. A lot of people died, Holodomor in Ukraine, resistance in Lithuania. Actually, last guerrilla warrior died in '64. We've been fighting the totalitarian regimes. A lot of people died, but I'm telling it for the reason because we understand why Europe is important. By suffering so much in this region, together with Ukrainian friends and brothers, we understand why it is important. We are kind of like a generation, you can say, of post-Second World War. That's why we believe in it. We believe in transatlantic family. We believe in the European Union. And that's why in 100 days, when we will start our first ever historic EU presidency, we will try to prove this enthusiasm by different actions. Well, one of the main goals of our EU presidency will be trying to embrace our neighbors in the East. Why? Because, well, we did it in Lithuania. We fixed the Soviet machine. We get rid of it, and now we boom. We innovate. We are happy. We are the only part of the European Union that grows. Well, before the global economic crisis, the growth was 10% GDP. Now it's about 4 and 5, but it's still the biggest. Our export is also one of the biggest. We are the 5th place in the world to attract foreign direct investments. We are very innovative. We have 5 million operating cells and just 3 million people. So we like it. And we've been quite successful in getting rid of different kind of Soviet cancers, as we call corruption, state aid, and other things that hinder the free market. And that's why we are so eager to do the same and try the same in countries like Ukraine. Just a little example, in '95, when we signed association agreement, the same agreement that Ukrainians are willing to sign in this November, from '95 till today, our GDP increased by 6 times. So it's kind of number, and we know that they can do it, and we will help them because we did it in our country. We know how you can do it, and that's why we will try to push hard signing of this agreement. We know what kind of challenges we have, but we think that countries shouldn't be punished. If we have someone who is making bad things, who is making something that is not acceptable in the country, so it should be personally targeted and punished, but not the whole country. It's 50 million of Europeans who deserve to be part of Europe because actually, well, We've been first time mentioned maybe 1,000 years, but I think Ukrainians had to add 200 years still. They were the old Europe, and they had the right to become again. Well, we will try to work hard together with our Irish friends. I imagine that Irish ambassador was just sitting in this auditorium. They are now pushing hard, and we will continue with some kind of westward direction. We will try to negotiate a comprehensive trade deal between Europeans and Americans. And we will have a wonderful market of more than 100 million people, innovative, most creative. Today, we are already together 50% of the world trade. But if we dismantle the remaining barriers between us, that will get a lot of new energy, a lot of new innovations, a lot of new money. Well, 1 or 2% GDP for both sides. And I think that will help us to withstand different pressures from some other global powers emerging. That's just to the benefit, and not only for to the benefit of diplomats or governments, but to the benefit of people, businessmen, communities, universities, companies. In January, I was in Vilnius, and I had an honor and privilege to visit some kind of company you should know, Thermo Fisher Scientific. I think headquarters are in Boston. And they have a wonderful factory in Lithuania that is one of the strongest in Europe. And we just do it because the borders are opening. So I'm looking with big optimism to the west and to the east. We can do it. We did it in Lithuania, being, imprisoned, being the first to revolt against the Soviets. And just 2 days ago, I had my first president, Landsbergis, receiving so-called Democracy Service Award, the same award that was given to San Suu Kyi, Dalai Lama, and Havel. So we are proud of that. We know that you can face the evil empire, and you can do it. So we have to do it in Kiev as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you both very much. Let me start by asking a couple of questions that come off the crisis with Cyprus, which is very much in the news now. And this touches on some of the themes that you were discussing, particularly the whole matter of democracy and democratization. So for both of you, looking at what happened, how the European Central Bank, the Germans in particular, and the IMF, demanded that depositors in Cyprus banks basically pay a tax on their deposits. The objections by people in Cyprus are that they've lost their democratic powers, that others in Europe have enforced something that, first of all, was against their law that guaranteed deposits up to 100,000 euros, and violated the practice of having bondholders pay when banks got in that kind of trouble. So there's a loss of local democratic powers. How does that look to you in Ukraine or Lithuania?
Well, it's obvious now that Europe has been recovering from economic and financial crisis. It took a couple of years to start to recovery. We think in Ukraine that after recovery, despite some critics, opinion of some critics, united Europe will become even stronger. We also think that, if I may say, all bank business, financial business will be more disciplined, and then at the end of the day, Europe will become more integrated. So in Ukraine, we quite positively estimate this process. We in Ukraine went through times in our banking system with a almost total lack of transparency. Now the situation has been changing drastically, and as up for today, we have a banking system like they have in European countries in member states. So we think that the financial crisis prompted really to have a banking system much more transparent than it was before. Thank you.
Do you want to respond to that?
Well, I will maybe respond in a way my president recently responded in Brussels, and she was budget commissioner, Grybauskaitė. Well, she said that, well, we shouldn't blame Europe about things like this. This is just a political responsibility of the leaders and countries themselves. Well, we had a banking crisis in Lithuania in the first decades of our transformation. It was very painful. A lot of people lost a lot of money. But from then we understood that, well, budgetary control, transparency, and supervision is very important. So we had some kind of period like is now experienced in some other countries, but afterwards we introduced all those measures also with the help of Scandinavian banks that are operating in a very transparent and cautious manner. And we even if we've been hit severely by the global economic crisis because our economy is very export-oriented, we've been the first to rebound because we also implemented very harsh austerity measures. My salary was cut by 50%, and we all survived. We are happy because now my salary is growing again, and the economy as well. So you have to be strict with things you do, and especially when we have neighbors who are not always strict and who try sometimes to create some kind of heavens. It's very dangerous for small countries like we are. So we learned the lesson, and we will not allow it to happen again.
Another question related to the Cyprus crisis. Both your countries have, to understate it, troubled histories with Russia. And President Vladimir Putin said that this confiscation of deposits in banks in Cyprus, there was something like $31 billion worth of Russian deposits there, both private and corporate, was unfair, unprofessional, dangerous. Some people have said it was a mistake by the EU not to consult with Russia before taking this decision. Do you think that Russia ought to have been consulted, and what is your reaction to the statement from Putin?
Frankly speaking, it's not that easy to answer this question.
That's why I asked it.
Yeah, there are two sides in this issue. First, Cyprus is a sovereign state, and all the assets, all the deposits it has for the time being were made on the basis of some agreements with countries. On the other side, Russia is really interested or is not very much interested, I would say, in this step that was announced by Cyprus. I have a feeling that maybe there should be some consultation or something like that. Thank you.
Well, being a small country, it's very easy to answer. Well, rules have to be, equal for everyone, being big or small, and that's what we learned in EU. If you want to create confidence and stability, you have to abide by the rules, and especially if you are big. Let's take another example, not only money, let's take energy. As you know, we are quite ambitious in EU, trying to create some kind of rules, especially for those third country vertical monopolies who are still trying to get some special rights, especially in the gas sector, and we don't like it, because if you create special heavens, it creates special problems.
Let me ask a related question, which is that Ukraine has had its differences with Russia over the gas pipeline. What a lot of countries will be looking at in the near future is a large amount of natural gas coming on the market because of shale. That's in the U.S. and Canada, but also in, as I understand it, Poland, maybe France, maybe Ukraine, and Lithuania. Now, what will be the effect of that supply on the power that Russia has exerted through its control of natural gas?
Okay. Thank you very much. This is a very good question. Ukraine, for the time being, suffers very much because of the contract that was signed by previous Ukrainian government with Russia. We pay now the highest price in Europe. Just an example, Ukraine pays for the time being approximately $530 for 1,000 cubic meters. In the United States of America, this amount of gas costs something like $90 or $100. That means that Ukraine pays more than 5 times than the prices are in the United States. And it's funny, but we pay more than, for example, Germany after Russian gas by transit through the territory of Ukraine and through the territory of Poland is delivered to Germany. That's why we invented a new approach. We now buy some gas from Germany, not from Russia. I mean, we simply cannot afford to buy such an expensive gas, and we have been negotiating with Russia in order to change the terms of the contract, which is totally unfair and which is not market, I would say, of market nature, but of more of some other nature. That's why we're looking for new sources of energy, and shale gas to some extent for us is an answer. And that's why we invited foreign companies, including American ones. And for the time being, we agreed with Chevron and with Dutch Shell on the extraction of gas in 2 areas in Ukraine. In eastern part of Ukraine, the Dutch Shell won a tender, and in western part of Ukraine, it is Chevron which won a tender. So we hope that that production of shale gas in Ukraine will strengthen our energy security. And as far as the global approach is concerned, yes, we are looking with optimism on the further increasing of volumes of production of shale gas in order to calm down the prices and in order to stop the situation when the gas or energy is a political instrument. Thank you.
Just to very much to say something in very much agreement with my Ukrainian colleague. Well, but maybe also from another side. Well, America is the oldest, most experienced democracy who is really, the beacon of freedom. That's because of America. We are still experimenting with democracies. We are pushing it forward, and we are inspired by Reagan and so on. So now it's time to create some kind of democracy and liberty in gas market, and you can do it with your technologies. And that's why very important. Well, we do what we can in Europe already with so-called unbundling directive, trying to disconnect distribution from supplier, trying to limit, as I already mentioned, those third country monopolies who try to abuse their power for very different reasons, not only related with energy, of course. So we will push hard, and we have a backing of European friends and Americans. Thank you for that. But especially in America, you have something that is really, by one of the congressmen last week was called as a gift of God for countries like Ukraine, Poland, or Lithuania. We have shale, it seems. We have to start exploring it, because if that's the fact, what we have, for 30 or 40 years, we could be energy independent on gas. This is really important. Or other thing like export of natural gas. As my Ukrainian colleague just mentioned, your gas is very competitive. I actually understand why don't you sell it abroad, because it's simply business, first of all. But not only business, because it can change not only gas market, it can change the geopolitical landscape, because fortunately or not, a lot of energy resources today are concentrated in the hands of autocracies. And I was dealing with community of democracy recently. Unfortunately, for last 7 years, the number of democracies are decreasing, with romantic Arab Spring including. So we are under attack here. And this time we're not speaking about American wars somewhere, we're speaking about your technologies and markets created that can change the world. So we very much hope that we have some resolutions in the Congress, that they will be carefully discussed, and one day it will not be just Sabine terminal somewhere in the south, but some other terminals already exporting your natural gas and changing the globe.
Thank you. I think we'll open up to questions from the audience. So if you just raise a hand, the microphone will be brought to you, and you can ask your question.
Full disclosure, I'm a retired German diplomat, and I'm trying to defend a little bit the German position, although I know a little about it. As far as I know, the German government was not the one that has forwarded the idea, as far as Cyprus is concerned, to give them a haircut. But it was rather the banking circles in negotiation with the Cypriot president, or the Cypriot government. The question was which contribution the country itself should make in order to solve the crisis, and they came up with 5.8 billion euros. And when you're in a situation of negotiation, it's really like it's up to you to find a way out of that. And I believe it was, since it was not totally new, that one knew that there was a specific business model in Cyprus. It will be difficult to explain, on the one hand, to, for instance, the German electorate, to let them go without a haircut. On the other hand, it will not be difficult, it will not be easy to explain to the German electorate, who are coming up for an election this coming September, that they too would, if need be, run the risk of losing some of their deposits. So the compromise will have to lie somewhere there. Thank you.
That's what was said.
Do either of you want to comment to that?
Well, just to comment that, for countries like Lithuania, those rules are very important, because we are still trying to introduce euro. And, we want to also to assure our electorate that, you know, we are hardworking people, we work like Germans or Americans, and we shouldn't just spend money like this. So that's why we very much agree with the opposition.
My name is Torsten Gislason. I've been blessed to be a traveler in Ukraine, driven thousands and thousands of miles there. Wonderful country, very beautiful geography, and lovely people. Let's divert a little bit from the issue of Russian Cyprus deposits. My question to you is, Ambassador Motsyk, Ukraine has gone through a difficult period of where to focus. With the Orange Revolution, there was a westward look that came with the presidency of Yushchenko. The election that followed brought the Party of Regions, I believe it's called, headquartered in eastern Ukraine more, and President Yanukovych took the reins. So if we sort of look at where's Ukraine going, is it possible to steer an independent course? I was at an airport in Donetsk, a Canadian Ukrainian woman was there. This was before the Yanukovych move, and I said to her, you have the blessing to be able to have friends and open to the West and still maintain your strong Eastern relationship with the Russians. And she looked at me and shook her head like, you don't even know what you're talking about. So where do you see it going in the future?
Okay, thank you. It's, for the time being, maybe it's always been a main issue for Ukraine. For the time being, it's definitely a very important issue. And as I mentioned, we had been in the past an integral part of Europe. I mentioned Kyiv Rus. And we are now an integral part of Europe by our history, by our culture, by our mentality, by our language. That's why we, in Ukraine, majority of us, the most pessimistic polls shows that some 56% of Ukrainians support the integration of Ukraine to European Union. I said the most pessimistic. That's why the European integration is supported by the majority of Ukrainians, by the majority of society, almost by all political parties, by majority factions in Ukrainian parliament. And there is no strong opposition to the European integration in Ukraine in general. So, as I mentioned before, priority number one of our internal and external policy is integration into European Union. It's quite naturally that we would like to have such a prosperous, democratic, if I may say, life in Ukraine as now they have in European Union. That's why there is no question what is or how do we see our future. We do see our future in the European Union, and we have been working in order to transform Ukraine into a democratic, prosperous European country. At the same time, we naturally would like to have good relations with Russia, and not only with Russia, with all our other neighbors. Well, as I mentioned, we have quite a lot of in common also in our history, ties between our population, and I do not think that this does contradict to our wish to become a member of the European Union, to become an integral part of Europe. Thank you.
Yes.
Maybe to support my friend, you know, in Lithuania we had also swinging, you know, left and right, and actually it was post-communist late Prime Minister and President Brazauskas who applied for EU and NATO. What is important and what we're always telling to our Eastern neighbors, you know, it has to be the whole political elite kind of consolidated on that issue. And this is happening, and that's actually existing in Ukraine. I was there observing elections. I saw, before my posting here as ambassador, I saw the most competitive civil society I ever see in this part of Europe. If we would have such a society in Russia, we would be actually very happy. You know, parties and people competing and business community thriving. So they are on the right track, and we shouldn't kind of divide country into right or wrong people, because actually it's very difficult and unjust. So they are a country who made a lot already, but signing of association agreement and bringing a lot of instruments, technical assistance, experience from our side would fix a lot that is still remaining to be done. And in 10 years after signing of association agreement, we in Lithuania, we joined the EU. If you would ask me whether they will do the same as a Lithuanian, I would answer they have the right to do it, to have this membership perspective. But let's at least give them chance to reform and to kind of purify that society that they have. And they're on a very right track, I would say.
I'd like to engage both ambassadors, if I may, in response to my query. My name is Lubomir Haida. I'm the Associate Director of the Ukrainian Research Institute at Harvard University. So I'm one of those lucky handful of people who think, dream, work on Ukraine day and night, 24 hours a day, as part of my very existence. But I'm also a historian by training, so I was very interested and appreciative of the remarks about the role of Lithuania in Ukrainian history, the long relations, and the advocacy that Lithuania represents at the EU for Ukraine today. So actually my remark is directed to Ambassador Pavilionis, but I would be very interested in hearing a response from Ambassador Motsyk as well. Ambassador Motsyk provided a rather heartening, I think, picture of Ukraine's progress toward Europe. And as someone who wishes Ukraine well, my heart always leaps a little when I hear such prognostications. But in preparation for today's session, I also went to the website of the President of Lithuania, who has been to Ukraine several times, has been negotiating with the President of the country, and has been also an intermediary between the EU and Ukraine. And if I could just quote from two of her visits, one was in November 2011, when in Kiev she said, among many other things, I'm authorized to speak on behalf of the European Union. Europe is ready for closer relations, but democratic development of Ukraine raises doubts, especially human rights and fair and objective trials. That was in November 2011. In the middle of 2012, that is last year, 2.5 years after the new government has been in Kiev, she visited Ukraine again. She visited the imprisoned former prime minister. There are some moving photographs of her with Yulia Tymoshenko on the website. And she said, well, I will limit myself to one sentence. Europe's trust in Ukraine is diminishing. My question to Ambassador Pavilionis, and pardon me for being undiplomatic, I'm not a diplomat, do you agree with the more positive picture of Ukraine's progress to Europe presented by Ambassador Motsyk, or do you support the position of the President of your country in her assessment? And then I would be interested in hearing Ambassador Motsyk's response to your response.
Okay.
Well, I would say, both sides are right. It's a lot to be done, and our dear Ukrainians, they know exactly what needs to be done. We recently had a wonderful summit with Ukrainians, and they know that timing is pressing. And, well, I was deputy chief negotiator of Lithuania on EU membership. I negotiated 31 chapter, and it was very difficult. And I know that this Brussels machinery is something, how to make it mild, difficult. So, you know, you have to register the progress as early as possible if you really wanted to get this green light from all 27, now 28 countries if Croatia joins. And then all those directorates, European Parliament, oh my God. It takes time, so we have to be ready as soon as possible, maybe May, with all best decisions necessary for Vilnius summit in November, because simply the machine will be working half a year. So they know what they have to do, and we hope they will deliver. But as I said, my personal opinion, we shouldn't punish the country. We should punish the people who did some bad things. Well, just by accident, it seems America was introducing some kind of Magnitsky legislation, and we targeted some people. So we should do the same, I think, in Ukrainian side. But why should we punish 50 million people? It's about, you know, the kids, the future generations, about economy, about the regional stability, about even the future of Russia itself, about the whole region, if you want, because Ukraine is a very strategic country for the region. We understand the strategic importance, so we have to be very careful in our decisions.
Well, I mentioned that 21 years of Ukrainian modern history is ups and downs. It's really the case, and when we talk about today's Ukraine or current government, we have to at least compare this government or this situation with what we had, let's say, 10, 7, 6 years ago, and so on. And we all remember how it was in the past when President and Prime Minister in previous government were fighting each other, and all energy went to their conflict, not to the benefit of the country. So Ukraine is a young democracy, and yes, today we are not France, and maybe we'll not tomorrow France, but be sure that we are on the right path. And as I mentioned, this government really was quite successful in adopting a number of very important pieces of legislation, very important laws, which really in the very comprehensive way have been changing the country, bringing Ukrainian standards towards European ones and world ones. So we know our problems. We have been working on our problems, and at the end of the day, we are sure that we will find a way out of our problems. Thank you.
Was there a question here? Yeah.
Yes, I'd like to ask a follow-up question. I understand that there have been 11 conditions asked of Ukraine to meet in order to to move forward to the association agreement. Could you talk a little bit about the ones that you might think would be most challenging to meet in a timely fashion?
Yes, we have been in a constant negotiation process with the European Union, and while we have a common understanding that Ukraine, in order to be ready to sign, or rather not only Ukraine, but Ukraine and the European Union to sign the association agreement and free trade zone, Ukraine has to accomplish a number of resolve a number of issues. We have been working on those issues, as you mentioned, 11 conditions, and we really are interested very much in their resolving, and in such a way be ready to sign association agreement and free association agreement and free trade zone, as I mentioned, next November in Vilnius. Thank you.
Is there yes?
Hi, my name is Matthew. I'm a graduate student in international law and international relations here at BU. My question is for Ambassador Pavilionis. During the crisis, I mean, did Lithuania consider with the currency, like loosening either the peg or getting rid of it? I mean, because even if in the long term there's a recovery, I mean, in the short term, there's a great deal of economic, even hardship, cuts, like you said, cuts in pay. Even the president and you took a cut in pay. So I mean, was that something that was seriously considered?
No, because, well, it's maybe tradition of our interwar Lithuania. We believe in currency stability, and that's why from the very beginning, actually exactly after banking crisis that happened, we pegged our national currency to euro, and we kept it like this because we believe that stability is important. That's why we are so sensitive on loosening the rules for eurozone, and actually we are in favor of strengthening them, but instead we did so-called internal devaluation. We cut the government expenditures. We introduced very harsh and maybe first in the region austerity measures, and we did it ourselves without the help of IMF, just because we had great leadership, including of my president and government. And it was also a solidarity of the nation. We experienced a lot of harsh things, including deportations to some kind of not nice places. So for us, this crisis was just a peanuts, to be honest.
Yes, there's a question there.
John Silva. In the United States, there's a huge debate regarding the pros and cons environmentally of fracking. I'm very curious to know that in Lithuania and Ukraine, what type of debate is there? Is there a debate that's environmental, geopolitical, foreign, and internal for both countries? Thank you.
In Ukraine, we, let's say, we remember how it is important to have a clean environment. At the same time, we understand that for us, extraction of shale gas is very important to strengthen our energy security and our energy independence. And we hope that within some time in the future we will reach that independence, and we will have really energy security. At the same time, we as I mentioned, we want to have our environment clean. That's why we learn from United States experience. We, for the time being, we've already sent a number of, let's say, delegations or experts to see at the spot how this process is taking place. And generally we are satisfied. And we have been working with our NGOs, with population, in order to explain that it's not such a danger as they might think. And we also explain that there are some, not everybody, or in other words, not everybody is happy with this new source of energy, and somebody who is not very happy is trying to inspire horrors of possible horrors of extraction of shale gas? Thank you.
Well, I would say the same answer. Well, internally, of course, they are environmental worries, but I just, last week spent the whole week with my Minister of Environment somewhere in Pennsylvania, checking drilling and explorations, and we are very careful with that. And we will, of course, be kind of introducing maybe some additional measures, learning from wonderful examples that we found in Pennsylvania. But those internal aspects, like my friend just said, are very much kind of enthusiastically supported by some kind of external elements who are very unhappy with new technologies developing, who could take the market, shape the whole revenue scheme, and that's exactly what is worrying. With internal aspects, we are happy to deal. We transformed Soviet Zoo into a growing, Nordic-Baltic region, and we know how to deal it. But with external aspects, we are very nervous because this shouldn't be like this.
Let me ask a follow-up question on that matter. Part of the problem with fracking here is that there's no regulation on the kinds of chemicals that are used in the water that's shot in horizontally. Would you in Lithuania or in Ukraine insist on regulation so that if there is fracking, there's the absolute minimum amount of damage to the water supply?
Of course, first of all, in Lithuania, we are just, checking what we have. We are not starting the exploration. It's just, trying to see what exactly we have. And we will have some period of 4 to 5 years to prepare all necessary legislation for exploration. And we will, of course, try to take as much as possible precautions, not only environmental, but also society-related. We really want to see what we saw actually in Pennsylvania when local societies are enjoying it because it creates a lot of jobs. It shapes the whole business environment. In those territories, Lithuania, for example, we have one of the highest unemployment in Lithuania. So of course it will have a positive impact. But we will be, of course, carefully drafting that legislation. And what is interesting in our case is just Chevron, who applied for the license. They are very much willing to do it together with us because, of course, they are interested into the success of the whole operation. That could be win-win for the company, for the region, and for the globe.
We, like Lithuania, are just at the stage of signing production sharing agreement. We signed already with Dutch Shell, and we are in process of signing with Chevron. And 2 weeks ago, I met Vice President of Chevron, and we had quite detailed conversation on this topic. So we still have a time, and we, as I mentioned, have been learning from United States. And definitely we will do our best in order to keep our environment clean and do not harm it.
There's another question here, yes.
Yeah, am I on?
Yeah.
Yeah. My name's Tom Simons. I'm a former U.S. ambassador to Poland, and I'd like to switch back to politics. A comment, I was amused that both of you managed to avoid even the use of the word Poland in your presentations. I mean, we had the medieval Commonwealth, which sounded all Lithuanian. But I think I'm pleased with that because I think it means that Poland is no longer a problem for either of your countries, which hasn't been the case in the past. But I would like to ask about NATO, about Lithuania as a member of NATO. Ukraine, NATO in its summit in Bucharest in 2007, I think, had a declaration that Ukraine and Georgia will someday be members of NATO. I think that has kind of faded from the picture, but I wonder if Lithuania will be advocating Ukrainian entry into NATO with the same enthusiasm that it's going to advocate Ukrainian entry into the EU?
Thank you. Maybe I will start expressing deep gratitude to Lithuania, to my friend, to his great country for friendship and for constant support of Ukrainian European aspirations. As well, I would like to express our deep gratitude to Poland, another our good friend, and Lithuania and Poland and Lithuania really are the best advocates of Ukraine in European Union. Second, as far as the NATO is concerned, you might know that Ukraine now has a concept, non-block concept, but at the same time we have been developing very constructive partnership with NATO. We, as I mentioned, are part of almost all peacekeeping operations under umbrella of NATO. We participate in military exercises every year, including with the United States, either on the territory of Ukraine or abroad in the framework of NATO. We have been very close cooperation with United States, with NATO, in the context of reforming of armed forces of Ukraine. And believe me, our cooperation with NATO is even much more deeper now than it was 3 or 4 years ago, before the Bucharest summit. So we consider NATO as a very important instrument of security, of Ukrainian security as well, and we are interested very much in further deepening of our cooperation with NATO.
Well, to continue in the same way, well, usually we are always standing on the same side of the barricades. So on Poland, well, yes, we did it with our brothers Poles as well as with Belarusians and Ukrainians and our Jewish population for those 500 years. It was simply difficult to distinguish who is who, even 200 years ago. When I said to President Obama about Lithuanian General Kosciuszko, who erected West Point, of course I had some questions from Polish side, but you know, it's common between us. It's a lot of things like this. So yes, strategically, this is very important alliance that we have. As neighbors, we have always different kind of questions, but they are of minor importance, and strategically, this alliance was most important, I would say. It is because of Lithuanian Americans and Polish Americans. We've been winning our NATO case. We will never forget the lobbying Polish congressmen and Polish Americans did for us. They were kind of coaching our NATO accession. And actually here in America, I have a fun time. I like Polish Americans very much because we agree on everything. Because I think they are the people who actually suffered in the same way like us. And it's not because of the good life we are in America, but because our empire and, well, different other forms of our statehood had been just destroyed. And those people who are in America, they understand why it is important to keep together. Yeah, so together with Poles and other good friends from Central Europe and Germany and a lot of other countries, we are trying to help our Eastern neighbors. Well, I was in NATO Bucharest summit myself. We were drafting those words, and I think what is a good thing, that doors are always open. And Ukrainians will have to decide one day where they stand, like they are doing it with European Union. Well, when I say decide, it's an important thing because we see that other third countries are developing some other strange ideas like Eurasian unions. It's, you know, well, I know it from mathematics of economy. It will be also a difficult decision for Ukraine if you enter association in deep free trade with Europeans. It will not be easy to get some kind of other status with so-called customs union. You will just have to abide the trade policy of European Union. This is the rule, Brussels rules in this area, and we have nothing to do with that. So I hope this point of decision will also come.
There's one here.
I have
Yes.
a question. The United States is spending $10 billion a month to fight the war in Afghanistan. And I was wondering what the cost is on Ukraine and Lithuania. And during the Soviet years, many Lithuanians and Ukrainians were killed in Afghanistan. And was there any discussion with the United States to get out sooner than they are?
So, as I mentioned at the beginning of my remarks, we are together with the United States in a number of peacekeeping operations, including in Afghanistan. We have a very small contingent, something like 25 people over there for the time being, and we are going to double it, this number, in the near future. And during the Chicago summit, during the Chicago NATO summit, President of Ukraine made a commitment that Ukraine will contribute to the settlement in Afghanistan after 2014, after the time when the United States will withdraw their forces from Afghanistan, military forces, I mean. So we understand how important it is to if I may say so, to bring back Afghanistan to international society and to international system of security, and to reach a situation when the threat to security will not come anymore from Afghanistan. Thank you.
Well, in our case, NATO was a kind of training ground for our militaries. We had no militaries. We created it with operations, first of all in Balkans, then in Iraq, and then Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, we've been running our own PRT in Gore. We have special forces in the south. Well, the principle was very simple. We get in and get out together with Americans.
I think that's going to be it. I'd like to thank both ambassadors and thank you to the audience for asking cogent, probing questions.
Thank you, everyone, so much. This has been an absolutely fascinating discussion. Give yourselves and the ambassadors a hand real quick, please.